We now come to the motion on stamp duty land tax reduction. Before I call the Minister to move the motion, I should inform the House that I have selected Amendment A in the name of Tim Farron. I call the Minister to move the motion on stamp duty land tax reduction. Minister Richard Fuller.
Thank you very much indeed, Madam Deputy Speaker. I beg to move the resolution. The former Chancellor of the Exchequer announced cuts to stamp duty land tax on the 23rd of September, with a motion moved following debate on the economic statement to implement this on a temporary basis. This resolution now confirms the House's agreement to that motion, allowing the Government to introduce a full bill to implement the changes permanently. The Government's changes to stamp duty increased the nil rate threshold for all purchases of residential property in England and Northern Ireland from £125,000 to £250,000. For first-time buyers, the nil rate threshold has increased from £300,000 to £425,000, with the maximum property price for which first-time buyers' relief can be claimed increased from £500,000 to £625,000. Madam Deputy Speaker, this resolution is simply a procedural requirement. It is needed to allow the Government to introduce a bill amending stamp duty land tax legislation. We will come on to the substance of the bill in the second reading debate in just a moment. Furthermore, there will be an opportunity to discuss the line-by-line detail of the bill during the committee stage debate at a later point.
Minister.
Mr. Deputy Speaker, I would like to thank members for their contribution to this debate. And at the start of the debate, my honourable friend, the Exchequer Secretary of the Treasury, has set out the critical importance of the bill and the Government's cut to stamp duty land tax. This bill is important to home movers and to first-time buyers, important for jobs and businesses connected to the property industry, and important for our economic growth. Stamp duty land tax at high levels can reduce a household's willingness to move. This tax cut will enable more people to move home each year. That will in turn boost economic growth through the businesses and jobs the property industry supports. Now, the Labour opposition spokesman made points relating to the cost of mortgages due to recent economic uncertainty and interest rate rises. I would just point out to him that interest rate and mortgage rates have been rising since last autumn in response to global trends, including Putin's illegal invasion of Ukraine, and the UK is not immune to these trends. And crucially, interest rates are not solely rising in the United Kingdom. The US Federal Reserve has been raising the base rate since March 2022. If the honourable gentleman, of course, I'll give way.
I'm grateful to the Minister for giving way. I just want to be absolutely clear. How sure is he that the new Prime Minister is not going to overturn this stamp duty stuff?
Well, I'm more sure of that than I will be in my position tomorrow. But look, I would just point out this is a serious debate, and it is an important point about mortgage rates that's been made in that. So I'm just trying to point out the two issues that has been rising since autumn, and there's a global change in interest rates. And our stamp duty cuts will actually help by reducing the upfront costs of moving. This bill will save a family moving into an average home in England £2,500, returning money, as my colleague mentioned, that can be spent to help cover moving costs or improvements, new furniture or appliances. The opposition spokesman asked some questions about the processing of this bill. He missed the fact, of course, Mr. Deputy Speaker, that the stamp duty change is already in effect, and this government is continuing with this legislation. The honourable member, member for Hayes and Harlington, made some good points about house building. I would just point out to him that in 2019-20, almost 243,000 net additional dwellings were delivered. That was the highest in nearly 20 years, and that the Spending Review 2021, the government confirmed £11.5 billion of funding for the Affordable Homes programme from 2021-22, which is the largest cash investment in affordable housing for a decade, and providing up to 180,000 new homes across England. The honourable member for Westmoreland repeated the points that he made earlier about issues to do with purchasing additional property, and I would just repeat, the government's stamp duty cut will make sure around 43% of purchases each year will pay no stamp duty land tax whatsoever, and none of these, Mr Deputy Speaker, will be purchases of second homes or buy to let. The shadow spokesperson in closing said that the government somehow seems to be encouraging foreign buyers and talked about introducing a charge for foreign buyers. I would just remind her that there is already a 2% charge for non-residents on stamp duty land tax. Mr Speaker, let me conclude by reminding the House what this bill is all about. It will mean around 43% of transactions. One more time.
No, I just wanted to make a brief intervention to ask the Minister, will he look at this issue of the 100% offset that incorporated landlords now have against profits?
Of course, I'm happy to look at all suggestions, including the one the Right Honourable Gentleman has made. But this measure today will mean around 43% of transactions each year will pay no stamp duty whatsoever, which will help to support the housing market. And I would just say to the Honourable Spokesman, the member for Ealing North, and to the Honourable Spokesman opposite, the member for Hampstead and Kilburn, that in both their constituencies, as a result of this measure, first-time buyers who would not have qualified to have zero stamp duty will now qualify for zero stamp duty, and Labour today will be voting against that. And I would also say they're not in their place to the Honourable Member, the Right Honourable Member, the member for Wolverhampton South East, and to the Right Honourable Member, the member for Leeds West, the Shadow Chancellor, that the average mover buying the average house in their constituencies would not have qualified for stamp duty zero-rate land tax before this measure, and Labour again will be voting against that tax cut for them today. This measure will boost labour mobility. It will support hundreds of thousands of jobs and businesses, increase transactions to boost the property industry, continue the government's record of supporting people into home ownership, including younger people, and for these reasons I commend the bill to the House.
The question is that the bill be now read a second time. May I therefore say aye? Aye. No? No!